Hey everybody, it's Dave Dugdale, learningdslrvideo.com. On the left hand side we have the internal codec of the a7S, the XAVC-S at 50 meg at 1080. On the right side we have the Shogun LT ProRes at 4K, and as you can see right off the bat, there's a big difference in contrast between the two. And it might look like there's actually a color shift going on with the between these two, but actually there's not, because when you add the contrast in, as I'll demonstrate later, they look about the same in terms of color. But right here, when you look at those white tiles on the back, the Shogun looks a little bit perhaps warmer, but again, you have to add the contrast in to really see the difference. And here, I wanted to see the difference in terms of noise, and you can see that kind of cross member that it's passing right now. That's kind of where that noise lives, and it appears right now that the Shogun has more noise than the internal codec of the a7S, but it's actually not true. I'm going to show and kind of prove that to you here later. Let's let this one go ahead and finish out. The next one is just kind of another random shot, and I was looking at color. The Shogun had more accurate color, and it kind of looks like the internal codec looks slightly green. But again, when you add that contrast back in, as I'm going to demonstrate here in a minute, these colors match up pretty well. Again, I have no idea why the HDMI that's coming out, and I'm using the S-Log2 on all these clips, why there's a difference in contrast. It's almost like a different profile. Now let's look at detail. Obviously the big winner here is zoomed way in, is the 4K on the right hand side compared to the 1080 internal. But I thought that would be kind of an interesting test. You can see the grass and the buildings are much more detail with the 4K image blown up. Now here I've gone ahead and matched the contrast on the scopes exactly between these two, but you're going to notice that the Shogun has a slight bit more saturation than the internal codec, and I had to bump the saturation to match these two, but I didn't actually do it here. But here I wanted to prove to you I've added the contrast back in, and you can see where that noise kind of lives on that crossbar where that gradient is. They're exactly the same now, so once you add the contrast back in, they match perfectly. In terms of rolling shutter, these also, when I've stopped the frame and looked at both of them, they both seem to have the exact amount of rolling shutter between the two of them. So the differences are the Shogun has a lot more contrast. I have no idea why. Noise is equal once you match the contrast. The Shogun has a little bit more saturation. Shogun 4K obviously has more detail, and the rolling shutter to me, for my test when I stop the frame, looks the same. And here's some quality size differences, and as you can see the HQ is a lot bigger than LT, and I did all these tests in LT.